name is Warren. Hi Mike, how are you? Hello to everybody out there. I'm a colourist based in Australia. I work on all sorts of projects. We can't be choosy down here, so it could be quite big features, to big commercials, to smaller docos. I actually worked on a job last week, skateboarding doco, and I was actually given a skateboard as payment. So that probably tells you the sort of things that the modern colourist is dealing with. Sometimes quite hard when you're trying to put your kids through school and pay a mortgage, but I've been doing it 25 years and I still love it. I love doing things like this, and one of the great things, it was great to be asked by Moviola 2 years ago, but it's even better to be asked back. So if you get asked back, that normally means you did a good job and people like what you did the first time. So that's what I said, that's what I do, I grade here. Also a co-founder of the ICA. We run classroom colour correction training all around the world. There's a few places there you can get in contact with us if you want to know more about classroom training. On to more about what we're going to talk about today. I want to talk about the differences between LUTs, LUTs, plugins, and I called it DIY. A lot of people, when they're grading or they're new to grading, get to learn about LUTs, which is essentially a set of numbers which is a grade that will take a picture looking one way to another way quite easily. And they think, well, I should use the LUT. It's been supplied by Sony. It's been supplied by Arri. Not always the case. So what I want to do is to look at the different ways we can change a picture, compare them. And we're going to start with a couple of little tips. Obviously, I'm showing you on Resolve. That's because the software that I use the most, I know it well. It's the easiest one to showcase all the things I want to talk about. But you can take what I'm talking about and use this in the software that you use. I mean, most softwares now are capable of supporting LUTs, and they have been supporting plugins for a long time. So a couple of things will be Resolve related. There will be a few tips for you Resolve operators in there, so listen out for those. One thing I do a lot whenever I've conformed a job, I will double click under the thumbnail, which will tell me what codec we're dealing with, and we can see we got some raw shots here. Let us start with the Alexa. Always play a shot when somebody has their eyes shut, and hopefully play to where you can see their eyes are open. Image looks quite flat to the eye and desaturated. This is when we could typically use a LUT. Now Arri, kind people that they are, supply a very nice log C. That's what this is. It's in ProRes, but it's in log C. And if you right click on your node, 3D LUT, you can go to Arri and select the log C to 709 LUT, which will make your picture look reasonably normal. You can still grade there under that picture, so you could choose to come into your primaries here. Remember, this is not a raw, this is a ProRes, and you could just lift your midtones up underneath there like that. Alternatively, you could say, well, I don't actually like the LUT for this shot. I like basically what is done, so I'm just going to base mem it out. I'm going to add the LUT again, and then I'm going to do my own little grade by taking my contrast up and my pivot down. So the LUT is still there, maybe just to give it a slight grade, and then I'm going to save that into my still store and call this Warren's LUT or something like that. And then that becomes the starting point for all the other Alexa shots that you have in this show. You toggle it off and on, you can do that. So in this one I have two. You can either break them out into separate nodes, or you can leave that in one. So you can have a LUT going on there if you wish. What we are going to do now is look at the fact if we wanted to ignore the LUT completely, say, well, I'm not sure on the LUT, I feel like I want to grade this myself. Now the advantages there are, if you are just using a LUT, you're not necessarily understanding what is going on with your software, because when I apply that LUT, what is changing in Resolve? Now, is it changing this? Our curves? No. Has it changed the primaries in either primaries or log primaries? No. Has it adjusted anything to do with our color match? No. Nothing has changed. A LUT is a generic set of numbers, RGB numbers, that can be used or converted to work in virtually any software that supports LUTs. So it could be used in a speed grade or an FCP or an Avid. So it obviously can't talk resolve language. It just makes the change on the graphics card of the machine. So if I wanted to grade this myself, let's remove that LUT there. Let's come down here and let's add some contrast to start with, because basically that's what we're doing. We're adding a gamma curve in, and use a pivot to just pull that down, so that will open up our eyes. Add a little bit more saturation there, and then that's when I would probably use that as my base. If I turn that off, that becomes my base grade and my balance, and everything comes from there. Now I cannot stress enough, this is a bit more general, whenever you receive any material, just to balance that out. Have a little look. Have I got detail in the blacks there? Can I see down into there? Do I leave a little headroom? I normally would. And I may just set that there just down a little bit on my first node. So then I could always go back. Is this your first node or your layer? And you wouldn't want to clip anything in there. Is there information in her eyes? Maybe lift the mid-tones up a little bit. So just do this to see up into her eyes. So our black's just there, and that would be a really good balance. Now, is that hugely different to what the LUT gave us? No, not really. I could have done that in here. Again, by doing this, I'm probably learning a little bit more about the software by creating a little shallow S there. Another way you can do it. Lots of people have their own ways, and there is no definite right or wrong on how you do things. Okay, so it's sort of up to you what you prefer. Let us look at some of these other formats I've got in here. F65, so if we have a look, Sony have a LUT they now have supplied and is utilised, and it comes with Resolve. If we right click on this, which is looking like Sony Log, S-Log3, 3D LUT, go down to right at the bottom there, we've got this one, S-Log3, S-Gamut 32709. Really, most of us are in 709, aren't we? If we do that, quite a pleasing image, achieved pretty quickly. I can toggle that off, and from there I could take that image anywhere, probably in a new node further down. Now for the Blackmagic cinema cameras in the room, your room, wherever you are, in my room, we have some DNG from the Blackmagic camera. I grade quite a lot of this now. They've just changed the way that DNGs work within Resolve. How they've done that is they have changed the tone curve. So previously, when you would have brought a DNG, so if we go in here, Cinema DNG, apply a pre-tone curve. So this is how it used to be probably last year. And if you wanted to work in 709, you were presented with that. Okay, so things looked a bit clipped out, maybe a little bit oversaturated, and you went, oh, that's a little bit hard to work with. I'll dive in there and go to BMD Film, like that. And then what you would have done is come and put a LUT into here like this. 3D LUT, Blackmagic, Cinema Camera to 709. And then you'd start working, then you'd have basically the same type of image that you could carry on working with. So that's changed slightly now in that, let's just put my scopes back up there. If you want to stay in 709 land, because, I don't know, maybe you don't want to grade or you don't have budget for grading, you just want to sort of shoot what you see as what you get, you leave everything as is. This is running actually 11.2.1 on the software. So what we can do is turn everything off there, apply, and you can see that as I did that, waveform jumped down and the image is a little bit more kinder, would I say, a bit more pleasing. So you could in fact then take those DNGs to make ProRes or MXF or whatever you need to, and in that instance that's quite an easier way of working. Alternatively, if you do have to match DNGs, maybe you're matching them to this Arri or this Red or a Sony, and I probably would recommend you do work in the BMD film. It does look quite saturated. Then you use one of the BMD LUTs, which is going to give you more latitude to be able to match other cameras. One of the things leveled at 5Ds and GoPros like this is that is what you get recorded. That looks great, and if you want that, that's good. But if you're trying to match that to other shots, then that becomes quite difficult. It's not so easy, because if you look at our waveform here, a parade, then there's not too many places you can go to it. This is GoPro, no LUTs for that. It is more what you see is what you get. Quite saturated. Moving on to our friend the red. Now everyone, well not everyone, right, a lot of people say to me, well, where's the LUTs for red? Where's my red log film to 709 LUT? Well, red's answer is you don't need one. We don't need to supply that, because we can give you all the tools to do that here. So instead of being in red color 4 red log film, you could say, well, here's your 709. Turn your color space and your gamma curve to 709, and there you are. No need to do any more. Problem is that is a little bit limiting, and if you look at the skin tones there, they are a little bit strange, whether I am now trying to drive either my ISO or any of these controls, or I'm diving into DaVinci and I'm trying to lift things up like that. So very rarely do I think anyone really works like this. Maybe if they've got something very quickly they may do it, but normally not. What most people I find are doing, and it depends again if they've got to match other formats, is that they're probably coming in here and they're probably using red color 4, and on your gamma curve they're either going red log film, maybe if they have to match other log type formats, or they are just using in here red gamma 4, which is more of a normal balance. But you can see it's not clipping anything here. You can certainly work with this, and I work with this a lot of times. I don't see there's any point in taking this to red log film and then basically spending time grading it back to get to this. Occasionally I will, if it's a slightly darker shot, I will certainly go in on the R3Ds, and I may look at adjusting our ISO or our color temperature and maybe a little bit of saturation. You know, just be careful, use stills and always jump back, and if you move a control and you don't like it, then remember to go back. That's Mr. Red. A little bit more difficult to understand, and obviously if you are doing dailies and you want to spit out to just to make ProRes or DNX or something, then it's not that ease of just putting that LUT on there and transcoding out. There is a little bit of grading involved, but what you can start to do is to certainly make your own LUT. So if you've got something that you do like and you've just done a little balance and you say, well, that looks pretty good, what you can also do in here in Resolve is right click and generate a 3D LUT. By the way, it would generate Panasonic LUTs as well now. Do that and it puts a LUT in here that you can call red or grade, puts it into this file structure which we'll talk about in a minute, Blackmagic Divine DaVinci Resolve, puts it in there and you give it a name, then you have a LUT. Now you can either use that LUT for any time you have a red job, or you could send it out on set, so the guys that are on set can use your LUT and look at it in their video village, so everything looks bright, happy and sunny, maybe not so washed out. If you are using a supplied LUT, so if I was here and I've done a balance, we've seen what happens with Mr. Sony. But what I can also do, and I'm going to talk a bit more about using a pre-built look now that comes from Blackmagic, for example, or you can buy looks. Right, a lot of people selling their own little looks. If we go to BMD as power grades, there's nothing there, so I have to bring that down. So if I look for these are the free looks that come with Resolve. Drag the bleach bypass one down, and I've actually made another power grade folder. I like to run 2 or 3 of these because they're always useful for ideas. Now, what I can now do is to drag that and put it after my balance, and then there's Mr. Blackmagic's idea of what a bleach bypass should be. A little bit flat, probably what my thinking, but again, it's only to give you an idea the big advantage here, it tells you and shows you how it's been created because it is a resolve thing. You can hover here with your mouse and it will say, look, saturation, luminance, that is what has been done on this. Hover again. So useful for learning. You can also then obviously come in there and grade that to your taste. Now, if you have a pre-built LUT, not a look, this is a look, here's my look, I've made my own bleach bypass in Resolve, I can then just drag this guy, middle click him like that, and you can see this is my pre-built one. And what I've done here, I've influenced a little bit of warmth into it. This is my black and white node, and I've used a layer to blend between them. But the advantage of this is I could label up these like this. This would be my color. So when I bring it in, you can actually see how I've done it. So if you purchase some look LUTs or you make them yourself, you can see how they have been created. That's how I created this one. I made a very contrasty. I'll probably make that a bit contrastier actually. Let's come in here and let's take this Luma channel up a little bit. And then what I've done, I've gone into the key, the gain, and I've just mixed through between a silver, and this is actually just applying that warm type Three Kings look that we quite like. Bleach bypass tends to be a little bit warmer than anything, but that normally was the lab time. The color time in the laboratory did that. The hard high con came from the actual bleach bypass process that made it look like that. All right, so that's Warren's preset. We've looked at Blackmagic's preset. What about if we use the plugin from Sapphire? I can save these out as well. So let's get rid of this. And actually, I wish I'd used my balance, actually. Let's go back and get that. There's something for Resolve, guys. Right click, display the node graph, and just drag my balance onto there, like that. Let's take that down a little bit more, add a bit of contrast. There wasn't too much balance there. There. Make a new node, open up Sapphire. Sapphire has a heap of things in there. It is really good. Lots and lots of things. I would never say I've used even a quarter of the effects you could use in here. Bleach bypass, and drag that onto number 2. There we are. That's definitely a bit darker, a bit stronger. Instead of me now using these remote resolve controls, I'll be in here, and it says FX under there. And if I just adjust the amount, I can just go in and just adjust this. Take that down, and you've got all sorts of controls in here. The amount of grain that you can add into the picture in each channel, how bright the grain is. There, if I take that up, you can see there on the right hand side of my picture there, just how grainy that is starting to look. So that's all controllable, very controllable. How does all this look though on a show? We've done individual shots. Which way should we do this? At one point, let's just try that LUT. So that's Mr. Sapphire. Let's try from my therapy in London. They have some what's called look LUTs before we move on. So let's try one of those, 3D. And they have a Sony bleach bypass. This is a LUT again. Looks a little bit hot, obviously straight off, but I quite like that because obviously bleach bypass sometimes did clip. Now I could go in there and I can just bring that down. There we go. I'm on the node that did the LUT. There, number 2. So it's got a LUT and a grade, and I'm able to bring that information back in. I quite like that. How do you get that in there? So if you bought LUTs or somebody's giving you LUTs, there's even like Instagram ones that are emulating Instagram looks. You do this, into your settings, look up tables, and you can open up the LUT folder. And what you need to do is drag these looks into the CineSpace folder. If you go in there, there's the ones that I've been using, the My Therapy ones. ones I bought, ones people have given me, and they just travel around with me. I just have to remember when I leave a post house to delete them, otherwise people will be ripping them off and putting them on the internet. So you've got to be careful. But that's where they live, so in there, in your LUT folder. So I'm now on a little conform sequence. This was originally red, and it's now ProRes, just for ease of working. And what I'm going to do is to just go through and try and emulate a little bleach bias look in the different ways and how easy it is to do it, either way to do it. I'm going to run this down so we can actually see her eyes. Always run down so you can see the talent's eyes. And I'm then going to apply my preset look, my bleach, which is here somewhere, there it is, there. So if I just middle click that, that has a balance built into it, which basically means I go here straight away because obviously it was made on another shot, and in there I will adjust my controls in here and just grade that to taste in there. Probably like that. There, put that in loop, run that. Now, if the highlights clip very slightly, that's okay with bleach bypass. Likewise, if it goes a little bit dark and crushed, quite a strong image. And the way I did mine, I like to put my grade up here to make it that slightly warmer, maybe that Three Kingy type look. So that's that. Now I would normally then just go up to my stills folder, grab that, and then we can compare how we do with the other modes. So let's go to this shot and let's try the LUT in there. So what we will do is go down to and see whether we have a LUT. Let's just create a little balance off there first, and let's have a look at a LUT and how that deals with this problem. So in there we have lots of LUTs. Let's go to the red one actually while we're there, because this is red originally. So 3D LUT, red, there we are, red bleach bypass, there. A little bit darker, but obviously then I've still got the ability to come in there and make the change. But the only thing with a LUT, I don't know how it was done. Whereas this, because I made it, I have more of an understanding. And even if I bought it, I've got an understanding of how it was made. But again, no right or wrong, whether one was created the right way or one was created with a LUT, doesn't necessarily matter. Let's look at Sapphire. I'm going to grab my preset though, before I do that, and just drag that there. Then open up Sapphire, and we've still got our bleach bypass, remembering to put it onto a there. And it probably just needs a little bit of that pushed in there. And I can probably up the saturation a bit overall and scale the lights. Now I have control over my grain in here, which is great. So I obviously do not have that here. Grain details, if I want to amplify any of the grain or take the blur off it, then we can. So add that, will give us more grain. It is obviously an advantage in having everything built into a plugin, and it does give you a lot of controls. Same with all these plugins that you can now use. Sapphire is obviously just one of them, but there are a lot of things in here that you can adjust. And it will take a bit of learning to go through and say, which one do you want to use? Which one do you want to adjust? Gain, amplification. It's going to look quite grainy or noisy like that. Also going to slug performance of your machine as well. The more of these you slap on, the slower everything's going to run, the longer it's going to take to render and whatever. So you could easily copy those across to the rest and you're pretty much done. They're on each clip, so you can adjust them. What about if we wanted to make our own grade like we did here, and we like this with this node structure, we saved it up there, we want to put it across everything, that add our own grain, that we can do as well. To do that easily, just select your whole timeline and then middle click, and it will put the same grade across everything. Now it's going to be slightly wrong, so I'll just fix up this one while we're here, just quickly. I've done that, and I'll just then middle click that one. Wouldn't put that in a group, don't really have enough time. But you get the idea. Now we have this, probably when I would then just save this session, and I wouldn't go and fine tune it because we're going to add grain. That is going to change the image. So I'm not then going to really get this right and add shapes, I'm roughly going to make it right. And then I'm going to final grade after I've added the grain. Doesn't that make sense? So because I've added from the still store my node structure with my labels there, I can go into any one of these and adjust. May decide that yes, he does need to come up a little bit more, but I may do that after I've added the grain. Like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time matching at this stage. How do I add my grain to this? Go to media, find my grain up here and deselect any shot. So make sure you have the grain selected. This is physical MOV grain. So I stole this somewhere. I didn't steal it, I made it in the 90s when I was working in a shop where we were putting a lot of film through, and I just captured a lot of grain and recorded it on a VTR. So again, don't put it in there. Add it as a matte, right click, add as matte. You know, it goes in as a matte. That's why I couldn't have it in as 100%. Want it as a matte. If you are in other, so maybe not in Resolve, you may well be dragging your grain down to V2 and doing it as a comp layer in Vision Layer 2. That's typically how you would do it. You know, you could do that in here, but from a colorist point of view, colorists probably feel more at home doing it in this type of environment here. Now, we're not going to put it on a clip. We're going to apply it to everything. That means timeline mode. In timeline mode, this means grade everything or add an effect to everything. So I'm going to add a new serial node, and then I'm going to add a layer. The reason for that is off here, right click, I can add a matte. Then I'm going to click on this link and break there and feed it with the color and the texture from the matte, which I can then grade. So if I'm in here, I'm actually just going to grade and make that grain a bit contrastier. Then go to your layer node, right click, composite, and probably use it as an overlay. And you can see the grain is through everything, if we see here. This is one size fits all. So the whole of this timeline has exactly the same grain. Now the chances of that working are a little bit slim. What I would then do, go back to clip mode. And this is what I do, no means definitely right or wrong. I would then start to balance him. Go back to node 1. He's a little bit warm, probably just need to balance him off a little bit more. There. And certainly there, he's slightly different. So when I've gone through and I've done my overall balances, I can then go and say, right, now I like it in matches, but what I need to do is to go in and decide that the grain is either too strong or too heavy on certain shots. So what I would then do is go back to my track mode. Now this is quite a cool little trick, I use this quite a lot. Let's get rid of that guy. Expand here. I'm in track mode, so I always know that timeline. It used to be track mode, it's now timeline. Green outline around any nodes, another way you can tell. And you right click just here on the little brown bar, add EDL marks on tracks, and that allows you to add individual grain. So on this shot here, number 4, I'm really going to drive the contrast up with the grain just to show you really the difference. I can do this and this, and then we can see when we run over, so that's normal. As soon as it crosses that mark, she's a lot more grainy, he's not. There. So that means that we can use these on an individual basis for adding the grain. If I want to balance the color, I'm back in clip, and then I'm adjusting the color on her. So there's a way of getting obviously physical grain into your shot, as well as maybe using the plugins. But again, generally, to sum up, no necessarily right or wrong on how you do things. The LUTs are good, even though they don't change the controls, they will show you what something should look like from a manufacturer's point of view. So if you are in here and you do put the LUT, then roughly that is going to be correct. Whether you choose to use that in your grading is up to you. Okay. Again, colour correction is a subjective thing. I want to thank for the footage Nick Payton here in Australia for shooting this, Gianluca Bertoni in LA for shooting this, and for the red footage is my good friends at FX PhD. They supplied this. So thanks for the guys who give footage. It's not always easy to get footage for us guys who do some training stuff, as you well know. A big thanks for them, and thanks for everybody for watching. And you, Mike, and the guys at Moviola over there in LA. And I look forward to hearing your feedback on the class. Thank you very much.